Eureka! I've got an idea.
Jinkies, 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 jinkies.
This is being recorded late night. I don't usually record late night anymore because I usually sound slow and sleepy, but I'll try not to do that. But I'm excited. I appreciate everybody watching, and we're going into the New Year's Eve 2022. What do you think is going to happen? I wish everybody watching, them and their families, the best of prosperity and joy going into the new year. Man, I fell asleep and I was listening to a YouTube channel and I woke up to a different one. It was Victor Davis Hanson, and he was talking about critical theory. And the things that he said were things that I feel like I had a grasp on, but the way he said them really resonated with me. He talked about equality versus equity.
Is now equity. It's not a quality of opportunity, it's a quality of result. Now, you and I are not born equally. I don't know, you might have better health or worse health. Your IQ is probably higher than mine.
Doubtful, but
I may be
on.
luckier than you may be luckier than I. But if the government says we're going to be equal, then it needs enormous powers of coercion to make you go down and me go up.
Then he talked about the enormous government power that will be needed to enact equity. So let me give you an example of equity. You could do equity in so many different ways, but my theory of doing a universal basic income is to say everybody gets $1,000 a month from the government. Everybody gets $1,000, you do what you do with it. Even though we know there are other factors that make things unfair, but life isn't fair. But it's at least in the distribution of that money. People who believe in equity would say, no. When you divide people up into these different identities, let's talk about race. If you're white, you shouldn't get a universal basic income. If you're black, you should. And it doesn't matter what your income is as a black person. You can get the universal basic income. That's an attempt at equity, even if the white person's poor and the black person's rich. So let me give you this thread, and I'm gonna give you my theory right now. This is the eureka moment, but you've got to follow this to the end to see how I got there. The eureka moment is with critical theory. To people who believe in critical theory, let's talk about race. Critical theory of race means they look at everything as being racist. So they say either you are racist or you're siding with racists. They would view me as a black face of white supremacy. The people who believe in that, to them, heaven is the idea of equity. Reaching equity is heaven. Now we're going to tie this into how it's a religion, cult, very powerful religion. And the government is God. That's my theory. Let me walk you through how I got there very quickly. Critical theory is a way to divide people into two classes, as you might know, the oppressed and the oppressors. This can be based on any combination or any identity, really. Race, gender, intelligence, beauty, politics, wealth, etc. What prompted this was Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her husband were in the stock market buying call options. Crazy stuff, spending millions on call options just to rack chips, millions upon millions. And it's always confused me as to why people who believe in critical theory do not look at Nancy Pelosi and her husband, Paul, as oppressors. I don't believe that they're oppressors. Well, I don't believe that they're oppressors. I believe they're problematic. I wouldn't use the term oppressors, but I'm just, in their eyes, why wouldn't they view them as oppressors, right? In classic Marxism, based on class, you automatically would. Like Occupy Wall Street, the original one, was based on class. And even the Occupy 2.0, GameStop, AMC, all that. So doesn't that confuse you? I've never heard anybody answer that. Maybe James Lindsay or somebody else has provided a theory on that. I've never heard it. So it might be funny if I heard it while I was sleeping watching James Lindsay, but I don't remember that. Or because I listen to a lot of James Lindsay and other people. So I believe that this idea that they believe in this cult, it all is based on this word. The word equity is the key. Critical theorists don't believe Martin Luther King Jr.'s view of equal opportunity. So somebody who is at home playing video games all day, if they are part of this oppressed group and you're watching this and you're a hard worker, whether it's your own business or your job, they still feel that person if they are in an oppressed group, should have equal outcome as you working hard. And they believe the only person that can do that is government. It would take immense government overreach to make that happen. Can you imagine? You have somebody on the street that's black and they're homeless. They should have the same home as you watch, same home or apartment as you watching this right now. That means the government would have to pay for it. They'd have to take from you. Government doesn't make anything. They take from you with taxes to give to them. That's the idea. Some people call it socialism. It's just a key word. Communism, yeah, it is. But I just don't like using it because it's such a trigger word. So that's why they're fine with mandates. They believe in government power to the immense proportions. I'm talking about totalitarianism. I'm talking about beyond China. As long as the people in power are their allies. So they wouldn't view Lauren Boebert as an ally. They would view Nancy Pelosi as an ally. Even though they might have some criticisms of her, they would still view her as an ally. So they would attack Marjorie Taylor Greene is an oppressor. Nancy Pelosi is not an oppressor. She is someone who sides with the oppressed. So let me know if this is off or anything so far. That's why voting reform is so important to them, because they want to vote people into office, whether it's Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, those types, I know he's going, but those types, they support them. So they want to vote them in. They're worried about the populist movement on the right and the left. So the people who believe in this cult feel that their allies in government are the only ones that can get them to heaven. And that's where I tie it back in to heaven is equity. Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't believe in that concept of equity. But Nancy Pelosi talks about it. Cori Bush talks about it. So when Cori Bush talks about J6 or the pandemic, they side with her because they want her to have more and more power, because they think with the more power that she has, they would want her to be president. The more power that she has, the closer they'll get to heaven. This is a cult. So they believe equity is heaven, and government, that government power from their allies, not Trump, from the people they believe in, whether they're right or wrong, they believe Nancy Pelosi is a saint or God. The idea of a establishment government that will fight for equity is the God that they will worship and support, even when they say put on a mask, and put on a mask on your 2-year-old. It doesn't make sense. I'm doing what they say because I believe in them. Obviously, if Trump said that, they would be rioting. You see it? Equity is heaven. And if you get in that way, that's how they act irrational. Imagine if you believed that certain people in government could get you to heaven, and somebody, your neighbor, was stopping you from getting to heaven. You would act like a lunatic. This is the Kool-Aid. Let me know if you think, hopefully I explained it well enough. And sometimes I have these moments I tell my wife and she's like, man, you are seriously crazy. Let me know what you think. Thanks a lot. Take care.